who's now Charlie Scott. Charlie Scott is someone who has been a good friend of ACT for many years. And he is his title is Senior Manager in Government Relations. And in practice, he is Metro's liaison with the state of Maryland government. And he has a deep knowledge both of Maryland, the Maryland legislature, and the Maryland and Metro. And I can assure you he is a regular rider because when we pass out leaflets at Shady Grove, we usually see him walking in. And so with that, I'm going to give you Charlie Scott.
Great. Thank you, Ben. In fact, I did see you the other morning, but you were engaged in conversation with a writer, so I did not interrupt you. But thank you for the introduction. Good to be with the group. Sorry we can't be meeting in person, but thank you for the opportunity. I'll share a few slides, just quick updates. I think most people know all the value of transit and the latest about Metro, but can't miss the opportunity just to share some updates about us. And I think when I think about Metro, I think we all think about the sustainability, economic development, those values. I think a lot of us often forget just how much safer Metro is and transit is in general compared to driving your own vehicle. So as I think about commuting to work tomorrow, I'm fortunate that I can walk to a bus stop and take a bus to Shady Grove and not have to worry about trying to battle traffic on snowy, icy roads. So definitely, I think that's one benefit that a lot of us forget about sometimes when it comes to transit. Just a quick snapshot of what Metro is these days. Combined budget of about $5 billion. This is our current FY25 budget, about evenly split between the capital side and the operating side. Obviously, we've continued to embark on major rebuilding of the Metro system that we embarked on following the dedicated funding approval in 2018. And now we are back to being number 2 in the country in terms of being the second busiest rail system. During COVID, we had slipped to 3rd behind Chicago, but we're pleased to be back to number 2 on that metric. Remain at number 6 busiest bus network in the country. Just a little bit about Metro by the numbers. This chart has been updated as of in the last 48 hours. We confirmed that January was once again a year-over-year monthly ridership gain in the system. We've definitely been strong on Metro Rail. Every month has been increasing compared to 12 months earlier. Bus actually slipped a little bit, but still the combined bus rail ridership, we were still ahead of January 24 for this year. Also, very proud that we've seen a great reduction in crime in the system. I think a lot of riders with the higher fare evasions and higher crime rates were feeling less safe and secure riding the system. So fortunately, we've seen in the last year a 40% reduction in crime. And that's, I think, partly associated with steep drops in fare evasion that we've realized since we've installed the new, more resilient, higher, taller fare gates across the system. So getting to the meat, I'm sorry, this is a very boring slide, but this is what you all were interested in hearing about. So this is more the meat of what's happening in Annapolis. So importantly, I think most people know that when the state of Maryland DOT released the Consolidated Transportation Program numbers for the current 6-year program, there were cuts across the state. A lot of highway cuts, some transit cuts, and obviously that was partly strategic by MDOT to demonstrate to the localities across the state just how dire the funding for the trust fund is. So in the latest CTP, they have increased the funding by the tune of about $1 billion and have been able to do that somewhat interestingly by assuming that the legislature is going to approve some revenue enhancements to the trust fund. So it's currently not really a balanced trust CTP that's out there, but it is balanced on the hopes and assumptions that the legislature will approve some of these new fees for this in this coming General Assembly. So on this chart, this is from the Department of Legislative Services. It kind of shows you what was enacted a year ago and how that is actually already benefiting the statewide transportation funding. So for the current fiscal year, almost 200 million in increased revenue that helped, and it definitely helped Metro because we definitely had an increase in state funding for the current fiscal year. For FY26, what was approved last year is yielding about 244 million. And then for 20, in terms of what is being proposed this year, some of these are actually similar to measures that were approved in the House last year, but never made it through the Senate and also lacked support from the administration. So I think now the administration has come around and realized that to balance the transportation program across the state, more revenues are needed. So the retail delivery fee, most people have heard about that. That's your on your Amazon or your Uber Eats or whatever types of things that are delivered to your homes, also causing some congestion on our roadways. So that is the largest chunk of new funding proposed by this package of fees. Also looking at the trade-in value. So right now, when you trade in a vehicle, you get to deduct the value of your trade-in from the purchase price of whatever you're purchasing. So by capping that, eliminating most of that, the state would yield another 140 million. And then some other, increasing the emissions fee. And the state has agreed to do a program where you can pay your registration fee in installments. And they're proposing to add a fee for the convenience of that program. So all told, annually, it would be about 420 million, on an ongoing basis in terms of the new revenue that the state of Maryland is looking to help bolster the Transportation Trust Fund. Briefly for Metro, I would highlight that none of this 420 million is really aimed at supporting Metro. Again, we got a healthy increase in our operating budget that we needed to kind of get out of the we were relying heavily on COVID funding to bolster the operating budget, and now we have mostly finished using any of the federal funding. We have drawn all the federal funding, so the last bit of funding was already used this fiscal year. So now we're in an era of no more COVID funding to support Metro's operating budget. But importantly, there is no additional funding for Metro from this package of fees and increases that they're looking at in Annapolis. And I would highlight that our next, it seems like we've solved most of the operating challenges for Metro, but on the capital side, we had approved in 2018 500 million dedicated funding. 167 of that comes from the state of Maryland, with comparable matches from Virginia and the District of Columbia. That 500 million is a static number, and every year we increase the level of funding that we need to use to pay off bonds as we issue more and more debt. So by about 2030, we will have exhausted the capacity to issue any more debt because we'll reach the limit on what we can borrow against that 500 million. So fortunately, Delegate Corman is always a good supporter, along with Senator Augustine. So they have legislation in this year that would increase that 500 million. It would tie it to CPI. And then once Virginia and DC do the same, then from that point forward, it would increase by 3% a year. So that would make the 500 million a much more sustainable, ongoing funding stream to support the capital program. So definitely want to highlight that for Action Committee for Transit, and of course hope that you all will be supporting that measure as well. What we've heard from Delegate Foreman, Chairman Barnes, is that that they recognize the need for this, but really for this to become reality, the 420 million number needs to further increase in terms of what the legislature can approve this session in Annapolis. So I can a couple other things, just briefly. This is a handout that I plan to give out in person. So I will just briefly highlight a couple pages from this, highlights from 2024 that we just released and printed for distribution. And I've sent the PDF of this. So anyone who wants to get a copy of this can send an email to the Action Committee for Transit, and this can be sent to you as a PDF. But just a quick couple highlights. Again, the rising ridership, our management team have found ways to reduce costs both on operating and capital. Pleased to say that we have the highest customer satisfaction rates we've ever recorded on our survey for both Metro Rail and for Metro Bus. And I already mentioned, I think that's partly related to the decrease in crime in the system. A couple other highlights. Again, this has the old number, 45 consecutive months of increased ridership, now 46 months. And again, we're trying to further make people feel more safe and secure by enforcing fares on the system. Couple other quick things. We have a new customer engagement, customer experience officer really focusing on making sure that especially new people to transit can figure out the system. So making sure that the wayfinding within the system is more intuitive. On ability for the Metro Access customers, we continue to promote a more convenient alternative that allows them to use other transportation network companies. And definitely for everyone's benefit, later this year, we plan to resume automatic train operations across the system. For those in Montgomery County, we're already benefiting from the Red Line being the first one to go back to ATO, but that will be rolling out later this year across the system. Let's just kind of highlight some of the economic benefits of Metro. I won't read this to you. Again, leading the country in terms of our fleet reliability and other measures of that have been supported by the dedicated funding, and also everyone knows that a long time ago, escalator elevator reliability was kind of the bane of our existence. Unfortunately, we've continued that program to rehabilitate and replace many of those units across the system. Again, we're proud of our joint development, transit-oriented development program at Metro. We have the largest, most robust joint development program in the country, but still want to continue that work in all three jurisdictions. So happy to see progress at New Carrollton, hopefully later this year at Capitol Heights, and then also Forest Glen. We envision potential activity there and other stations in Maryland as well. Again, as mentioned, Ride on Reimagined should be happening around June 29th. That's being done somewhat in conjunction with our Better Bus Network changes as well, happening June 29th. So we've done extensive 2-year outreach. And actually, the feedback we got from the community was very beneficial. So definitely, as you all look at the Ride on Reimagined changes, I encourage you all to give feedback to MCDOT, because that's really been helpful at figuring out how the proposed changes impact the community. And we were able to go back and make some changes to the network based on the customer feedback. So definitely encourage you all to follow Jake's advice there in terms of providing feedback as we continue to roll out changes on the bus network. Also coming later this year, hopefully by June or so, we'll have ability to use your credit or debit card on the rail network, and then later this year on the Metro Bus network as well. And then looking at the future, again, our 8Ks are being built in Hagerstown. So hope to see the first of those rail cars being tested in the system in 2027. And then continuing trying to transform our bus system, going slower than we wanted, I think, on electrification of the bus system, but that's a national challenge to move too fast on that. So, but definitely still working deliberatively to electrify the bus fleet. And quickly, again, I mentioned the Better Bus Network. This is rolling out June 29th. And then briefly, this is our the rail changes that we've highlighted in our FY26 budget. So yellow line getting up to Greenbelt, returning that service. On the red line for basically the busiest time of the peak hour, we would run at higher frequency on the red line, and then taking the silver line that currently goes to downtown Largo and actually splitting that so that half of those trains would go to the New Carrollton to make that a more even split, recognizing where the demand is on that part of the system. And also opening earlier and closing later on the weekends. So I think I will stop sharing now, and I think there's some questions out there. So I will stop sharing and take any questions.
Jake.
Actually would like to, if anybody else wants to go first before I go, that's please. I feel like I go first a lot.
Yeah. I
So
don't see any other raised hands.
in the chat, Sean Crago has asked, what does
Ah.
credit card payment mean for transfer riders? Any talk of US DOT pivoting off of Smart Trip and letting us just tap onto the WMATA mark VRE as needed with a dedicated corporate credit card?
Right now it would only be Metro Rail to start, and then Metro Bus. I don't think there's any talk of having this extended to. I think it's the TransLink transit benefit that you can do with Mark and WMATA. So I don't think that's on the table right now. But let us start with our core services, and then we can see if we can expand.
Thank you for taking the question. And yeah, just want to note that I'm relatively new to living in DC and find using that entire system baffling. And I've got a degree in computer science. And yeah, it is just way harder than it needs to be to switch back and forth between those systems without planning it out a month in advance and having a rigid fixed commute. There's considerable opportunity to coordinate with connected networks and make it quite a bit easier for riders. So thanks again.
Right. Thank you. No, I see a question. So we do have some special fare products for seniors, and then also for low-income residents using who qualify for SNAP. So I believe those customers will continue using their special smart chip cards that are enabled with those fare products. I don't think there's a mechanism right now for those customers to use the credit card capability. But again, this is good for everyone else. So that's the plan right now.
Great. Yeah, I think there's some comments in the chat, but no other questions in the chat. And we're going to check our YouTube channel where we're live streaming. I don't think there's any questions there. So Jake, if you want to go ahead with your question.
Yeah, no questions on the YouTube channel. I'm keeping an eye on it though. I will pat in if there are.
Jake,
Jake,
you're
you
muted.
are muted.
I'm sorry. Actually, well, with that being said, I actually have a few questions. One, what are we doing about is there any possibility of the system eventually getting what they've been talking about for a couple of years of these like four alternatives now for Metro Rail expansion, and getting like a bloop with service to National Harbor and things like that? And then two, will there ever be a rollout of Smart Trip access not only on WMATA, but obviously like on Mark and VRE, since Mark both commuter rail systems kind of failed to use Smart Trip to acquire tickets and all that. And with that being said, is there a possibility of them like being combined and being absorbed by WMATA to create a regional rail network as both systems, Mark VRE, are kind of struggling?
Good questions. So let's see. On the first, so you're familiar with our blue, orange, silver study that has looked at kind of the one main bottleneck that we have in the system is getting from Roslyn across the river, and a couple things we're looking at there that can help short of doing a major expansion program. We do definitely want to improve the signaling system for Metro. We are still using our legacy signaling system that dates back now 50 years because we'll be 50 years old next March. But obviously installed the system before we opened. So definitely, computer-based train control, CBTC, is what we should be going forward with. That will enable slight increases in the throughput across the system, including through Roslyn. So that will, get us some advantages there. But no, for long term, we need to find a better another way to build out the rail system and address that bottleneck. So that's a much longer term plan. We're talking decades on that. So I don't want to give anyone any false hope that that's something that we can approve and get done quickly. These are complex capital projects that take a lot of time in terms of getting the federal funding, the alignments, everything lined up for that. So don't get your hopes up that will happen anytime soon, but definitely we want to see continued progress to identify what it is that the region will get behind to address that bottleneck. In terms of VRE and Mark, I should mention that the WMATA Board, along with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Board, have co-hosted, co-led DMV Moves Task Force that is really looking at all transit needs, services, funding needs across the DMV. So that includes MARC, VRE, all the local transit systems, Purple Line as that comes on board, and definitely having better fare integration is one of the work groups that's been established as part of that initiative. So I think there are opportunities there. Whether it's a larger organization that covers everything from Metro to MARC and VRE, I think time will tell on that. But right now, I think I agree that both those systems are struggling. I think as federal workers return to the office, hopefully they will get more riders on those systems to help bolster their activity. But I think just kind of stay tuned on that one.
Mike Larkin, you've had your hand up for a while.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't.
No, I was going to say let one of the members go first. As a board member, I'll have plenty of time to talk. So, sorry.
Question from Cheryl Gross-Glazer. Is the long-term expansion of rail service on hold with the current leaders in Washington?
Long-term expansion of rail service. Other than what I mentioned with the blue, orange, silver study and trying to figure out a potential alignment that addresses that choke point, there are no other extensions planned. We're not looking at, red line to Frederick or green line to BWI. I mean, those have all been chatted about over the decades, but none of those are actively under consideration.
And Alex Campbell asks, building off that study, beyond a single line expansion, has WMATA considered developing a master expansion plan similar to Seattle, Mexico City, and Santiago?
So to some extent, I wouldn't say it's a. I would say we definitely have a 10-year capital needs inventory. And within that, there is some planning funds for, to look at these things. But again, beyond the blue, orange, silver, that there really isn't anything else that we are actively looking at these days in terms of major infrastructure improvements to Metro. So, I again, maybe things will change in the coming years, but that's where we are right now.
Paul Goldman asks, Greg Sanders is going to be next. Paul Sanders asks, is there any prospect for moving to dedicated lanes for any additional bus lines?
Yes, I think that is a much more feasible a way to improve transit in the region. So I know that in the district, I know in Montgomery County, there are efforts to look at different bus corridors. And definitely, and right now, I guess Georgia Avenue, we can point to that. We did the red line shutdown last summer, and there was the temporary shutdown or temporary use of the right-hand lane for buses. And then that was reviewed, analyzed in the fall, and SHA has agreed, at least during rush hours, to continue that dedicated lane for buses, for Metrobus and for Ride on Georgia. So definitely, we've demonstrated the value that can be delivered by having dedicated bus lanes. So definitely want to see that replicated in many more corridors across the region. And again, that is a much more cost-effective way to improve transit than some of these much longer-term capital projects.
Yeah, I should just add that at testimony at the Montgomery County Capital Budget hearing last week pointed out that we need more of the bus lanes, but they should be for all buses, not just for one route that's designated as BRT. And and specifically splitting the buses in different lanes, often effectively reduces the bus frequency. And that was the testimony we gave last week. Greg Sanders is next.
A quick comment that as a red line rider, I've really been appreciating the ATO. And if you have any stories to tell about how that got done or what's left to come for us in the system, happy to hear. And then as a quick question, hopefully, my understanding is that WMATA and Maryland have agreed that the purple line will be shown on the Metro map. Do you know if there'll be any dash purple line before completion, or is it only going to be once the line is operational? Thank you.
Good questions, Greg. Yes, we have committed that once operational, the purple line will appear on the map. I don't know, and for everyone's reference, whenever we have planned extensions on Metro, we've often sort of gotten the public aware and used to those extensions by doing a dash line while the extension was being constructed, and then a solid line once the extension was completed. I don't know if we plan to do anything similar on, for the purple line in that regard. I know that changing out physical maps is actually a relatively expensive endeavor across Metro. So potentially we could do that more with our digital assets in advance of purple line opening. And then once it's open, again, we have committed that we will depict it on the map.
I'm just going to throw in a pet peeve hobby horse of mine, which is that the Beltway should be taken off the Metro map. It was, before Metro was built, it was a useful guide, but it's a transit map. And
fair enough, Ben. I think it's still a good point of reference for some people in the region, but that's a fair point.
Chris Farrell has a question about Ride-On Match Metro for SNAP recipients.
Yeah, I'm very proud that Metro has done a discount. I'm a senior, I get a deep discount, and Metro has extended that on both bus and rail for SNAP beneficiaries. Do you have some information on how much that is costing, and could we maybe incentivize Montgomery County to do the same for ride-on bus service?
Yes, no, thanks for the question. That was actually a project I worked on. I worked with, we had a pilot program actually with the District of Columbia where we tested out the benefits and the change of ridership behavior by offering either a free transit or half off transit. So interestingly, when we gave half off transit, those riders rode almost twice as much. So from your actual budget perspective, it was practically a cost neutral endeavor because we got twice the ridership at half the rate. So from that standpoint, I can say and definitely when you look at the social impact and how much we invest in transit, it just makes sense that if not to be making it difficult for someone to feed themselves and pay rent and pay electricity just because they're also trying to use transit. So definitely a great benefit for low income residents. I would say that in terms of expanding, we would love to see ride-on other bus systems honor the same discount. The feedback I've gotten from the county is that one, they want to understand how many residents are actively enrolled in the program. So the county is actively working with us to try to reach out through Health and Human Services to get more county residents enrolled in the program. And they've also highlighted that their bus fares are still $1, while ours are $2.25. So from the county's perspective, and understandably, they feel like they are already discounting the bus for everyone, whether they're low income or not.
CJ.
Hi, good evening. I just want to ask you the question about about the safety on either the metro train or the metro buses, is because when I heard the news about some of the pedestrian was hit by the metro train in North Bethesda, it's because I think this is some concerns for some of the community riders, is because we just want to encourage everyone to be safe, is because I've seen like this quite often when there's like some incidents going on in North Bethesda station, and I just want to be sure it's I'm a people with disabilities, and in Montgomery County, Maryland, people um like the seniors or residents with disabilities offers a free ride by showing the ID, which usually is only in Montgomery County. But would it be able to be like expanded to like in Virginia or Prince George's County or Washington D.C. like that?
So on that program, I think that's a local program. And if it's Metro Access, obviously, if you are Metro Access eligible and you book a trip on Metro Access, we take you anywhere that Metro runs. So if you are taking a Metro Access trip, that's definitely will cross boundaries. If you are using a Montgomery County sponsored program, they probably have different rules and restrictions on that. In terms of safety on the platform, it is definitely in our vision, and this is another long-term vision for Metro, would be to have platform screen doors. So like when you go to the airport at Dulles, you're waiting for their trains, to get, between the terminals, and those, when you're waiting, the train arrives, one set of doors opens, and then the train doors open, and then you can get on. But while you're waiting there's no chance that you're going to fall onto the tracks.
Yeah, because I remember I saw that. I remember I see this picture of the metro in China where there's like a door slide just to make sure this is a big safety effort, because this is what happened. It's very similar to like if the car hits a pedestrian safety. This is the big concern that I think everybody, including local leaders, has been talking about.
Well, that is our vision. So world-class transit systems have those types of safety measures. So we want that for Metro. Again, this is we're talking about funding, right? So that is a definite item that would require additional funding across the region. But that's definitely something that is in our long-term vision for making Metro a world-class transit system.
I see, but well, obviously I didn't take Metro Access, but I just usually take a ride-on or Metro bus to work, because I just usually show the Metro ID. I know it's a free ride from Montgomery County, but I hope it's going to expand in Virginia, DC, or PG County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Crago. Please unmute.
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling on me again. Just kind of on what the last caller was saying before I get to my question, if I could. I'd love to suggest that WMATA work with regional partners to establish some sort of reciprocity for those benefits. And I know that those are regionally limited, but as the last speaker got to, they're all connected, and being able to cross boundaries from MoCo into PDC or DC or further abroad would make all the sense in the world. Maybe they can follow the library's leads and get some reciprocal agreements set up. But I wanted to ask very specifically about whether anything can be done by WMATA or whoever runs the Smart Trip system to make it easier to purchase passes on WMATA or on Ride On or on Virginia buses using employer subsidies. Right now, that it's blocked for me in the app. I'm not able to do it. Haven't been able to since enrollment. Curious if there's anything that could be done to simplify the rider experience when purchasing passes.
Yes. Short answer is yes. We're aware that the system is clunky. I don't know the details on what we're doing to try to fix it, but that is a known deficiency, I would say. So I know that our we have people trying to work on that. And I think now as ridership is rebounding, I think there's going to be more emphasis on pass products as more people are doing, 3, 4, 5 days a week rather than just a couple of days a week, and the pass products weren't as economically worthwhile. I think during COVID and coming out of COVID. So definitely, I think we are taking a look at that. So
Exactly.
I don't have a timeline on that, but it's something that folks at Metro are working on.
Thank you very much. It's something I was heavily interested in when I first moved here, but like you said, from a cost perspective, it really didn't make sense. But even though it was the employer's money, but as a Fed being recalled to the office full time from March 1st, that calculus has significantly changed. So thank you.
Right. So, and then I will hope that if it's the federal smart benefits, I mean, that program I think has been working pretty well. So if that's not working well for you, that could be, I'm not sure why, but I think it's more the I thought it was more of the employee tax benefit programs that were a little bit more clunky. But
the federal smart benefits make it very, very easy to just tap on, tap off, but I'm not allowed to use those credits to purchase a pass, even though it will after March 1st be more
yes,
advantageous.
I'm sorry, that is more of a federal issue. Yes, we would love it if they would, if the Fed would allow our customers to use their smart benefit dollars to purchase passes. No, sorry.
Yeah.
That's not a Metro issue. That is a federal issue.
Yeah. And they do have a process in place that would, I think, automatically purchase passes for me using some sort of government purchase card, but it just felt like so much overhead that it wasn't worth it.
No, I understand.
The
issue there is that the federal government basically claws back unused transit dollars on everyone's cards, and they don't want, so they are reluctant to allow the purchase of passes. And theoretically, they also want to make sure that you're only using the transit benefit for your commute and not for any other leisure trips. So that is their rationale for limiting use of federal transit benefits for pass products. So until we get that fixed congressionally or federally, we're stuck there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mike Larkin.
Thank you, Ben. So first off, Charlie, thanks for your time tonight so far. Speaking of revenue, has WMATA weighed in on the General Assembly bill that's thinking about a land value tax? That's HB 3330. I forget the Senate number.
In
relation to that bill, I know WMATA is working with the county with transit-oriented development at North Bethesda. Are there any other stops within the metro system that WMATA would like to see redeveloped to have more, transit supportive densities? I'm thinking, that big parking lot at Tacoma Park. Are there any master lists that WMATA is thinking about that they're like, wow, we would like to use this land could be used to generate more revenue. My question has been influenced by this great story that I heard on a podcast I listened to called PRX The World about what Japan does with Metro, their development around Metro. I'm sure you're aware of it. I know it's a different system, privately run, but they generate a lot of revenue for their system, and that's what we need to do here.
Yes, no, no, great questions. We are familiar with the legislation. Delegate Stewart, Senator Rosa have put in the bill. It was actually supported by by the union that represents most of our workers, ATU 689. We don't get too involved in recommending specific funding measures to, we demonstrate what our needs are and then leave it up to the policymakers to look at it. But definitely, we've weighed in some on the administration's TOD bill, and then on this one, I think we're just watching it. But definitely, it's just for this group's information, it would basically give the ability to have two forms of taxation. So you would tax right now, basically, when you pay a property tax, you're paying a tax on the total value of the land plus the improvement. And this would say, hey, let's split that apart and have one tax go for the land, one tax go for the improvements on the land. And the thought process is that by taxing the land at potentially a higher rate or more proportionate rate going to the land, that you would actually then incentivize fallow land near transit to get developed, because whoever owns that land would be paying, for something that's not producing much. So, but if you can actually add density to the land, then it's a great benefit to the region to have that land developed. So that's kind of the background on that proposal. I think you put in the chat that Delegate Stewart is offering a rewrite of the bill, basically, to make it more clear. So look forward to seeing what he does there. And definitely, I think it's a transit supportive type policy, and again, it's an enabling legislation that will allow localities to do this. It's not forcing it on localities. So definitely, I see the benefits of that. In terms of where Metro wants to see more development, anywhere where we have asphalt parking lots, that's where we want to see development. Tacoma has been a challenge for the last 20 years. But stay tuned. It is coming to our board this spring for final approval. So it is happening finally after a long, long time. Sometimes you wait and you end up with a better product at the end of a long process. So I hope that's the case I think that is going to be the case with Tacoma. If people who've been around a long time will remember that was going to be a townhome development, which really is not exactly great for such a transit accessible property. So I think what we build there will be better than what EYA was envisioning 20 years ago. I mentioned briefly Forest Glen. We have a proposal from the county for housing there. Again, high-rise, high-density housing there. Twin Brook, we're looking at both a parcel that's kind of landlocked by an adjacent property owner, so they will be purchasing that from us. And then we're also looking at what we can do with our parking lot there. In Prince George's County, I mentioned Capitol Heights. We've did a solicitation there, so we hope to have that. And in that case, kind of interesting for this group, zero replacement parking. We're just taking all the parking away and making it all TOD. Recognizing that we have ample parking, at the station, one up the blue line. So anyway, so it's definitely, we are eager wherever we can see it happen.
Well, I don't see any more questions. This has been, I think, very, very useful exchange tonight. Before we go, I want to remind everyone again to, if you have not joined ACT, we need you. Go to actfortransit.org and press on the join button. And if you have not yet sent your email to our legislators, go to that. Go in the chat. We've got the link. And I hope we will see you all in person next month. It will be March 11th in at the Silver Spring Civic Center. And thank you all, Charlie, and thank you everyone who's raised all these great questions. And we will be seeing you in a month.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you to Kathy and Cheryl for behind the scenes there. And
Yes.
Thanks, Charlie.